Connectonaire.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Live on connectonair.com and remoteradioweek.org.
Connectonaire.
Remote Radio Week proposes distinct programs in English, French, Spanish and Arabic, featuring experts, examples, debates and technical tips. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Insights and suggestions on how to keep your radio business operating through any crisis. 100% online, 4 languages. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
So thank you very much for joining us. Day 2 of UNESCO Remote Radio Week. Now, everybody's heard of WFH. Please remember this. It's WFH, not the other one. Work from home. Is it a short-term trend or long-term movement? Well, we don't know for certain whether some people will never go back into an office setting. What we do know is that for many jobs, working from home can be cheaper, more convenient, and more productive. Even if many of us do go back to offices, this pandemic has proven that work from home is possible and sometimes necessary, and this won't be the first and last time that we may have to do this. This UNESCO session shows us how to prepare for any eventuality requiring you to broadcast or podcast from home. To discuss these questions and more, I'm joined by Alex Poon, General Manager, Tech and Shared Services at Media Prima Audio in Malaysia. Snæbjörn Ragnarsson from Iceland. Snæbjörn, I'm going to mess up how I pronounce who you work for, but of course you can help me. He works for Hljóðkirkjan. Right, now say it properly. Say it properly for me.
Hljóðkirkjan, yeah.
There we go. Hljóðkirkjan.
Yeah.
Okay. They currently run 4 weekly podcasts in Iceland. Franklin Huizies is from South Africa. He's a community radio specialist and managing director at Audio Monitor, and audio engineering expert Detlef Wiese. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this session. There are a lot of people watching who are really interested to understand how they can prepare, what you've done well, what you've done poorly. This is the opportunity to let it all hang out, as it were. So let's start with you, Alex. You've recently taken a decision at your station in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. You've got multiple stations to crisis-proof those stations. What are you changing about the way your teams work from home?
Okay, thanks, Omar, and thanks for having me here. Hello, everyone. Just straight to the point. Nowadays, technologies are too advanced that we can do almost everything from home that we did not realize until this COVID came to us. We implemented a cloud-based system way before COVID happened. That was part of our business continuity plan. In other words, disasters recovery plan. We can switch it on at any time when it happens. However, when it happens, we cannot have the similar setup for all the announcers like what we have in the studio to maintain the best quality. Announcers have to make do how they do it from home, including managing their kids at home, dog barks from the neighbor, construction, and etc. So in fact, one of our announcers actually do it inside the wardrobe to have to maintain the best quality. To have to maintain the best quality, you can imagine that this girl actually go inside the wardrobe and then with his all the dress, all with her face, all these things, to say, "Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm announcers 1, 2, 3," and all these kind of things. And
sounds like punishment from Harry Potter. My goodness. Okay.
Yes. We get us in that 2 years. In fact, there is on and off where there is that we work from home, and then those announcers who is crucial, they have to go back to the studio. But when we find out one of our colleagues who actually tested positive, and then they have to go back to the whole team has to go back to the studio. So we get a lot of feedback that they have been having a lot of challenge that to maintain the best quality, right? In fact, when we are driving or when we're at home, we're listening through app or we're listening to the FM radio, right? We listen to it, we can see the difference of the audio because we can, very obvious, the music that is played is very good in quality. When you come back to the announcers, it's already got echo and such, right? So what we do is we're trying to give this solution to them. And like I said earlier, we cannot really we are not able to actually give all of the announcers to have the same setup that we have in the studio. Like imagine if they need to have a mixer or they need to have an audio interface with a mic and such, and we need to have all the foam to be installed.
So what do they have, Alex? For all of those presenters working from home, what do they have?
In the first place, this is the only weapon they can do. Right, you can hear me is a very good quality, of course, because I'm in a room and it's being proper place, right? But away from my mouth, you can actually hear the echo already, right? So what we do is we actually go into a situation that that we no need to go for best quality kind of equipment. So what we do is a must-have. What we do is because in the first place, all of our system are already on cloud. So it's very easy. It's just for them to how to plug into the things, and they have to use the right equipment that they have. So we actually provide them, each of the announcers, to have a dedicated mic, a 5-panel isolation windscreen, and then with headphones, because most of the time they actually go on air more than around 4 hours like that. So you, like this. Today, 45 minutes, I think I can handle, but it's like more than an hour, it would be very tired already.
Right.
So in fact, these 3 things is the most important things that we need to have. In fact, this is the one that we are having.
Right. Maybe bring that a bit into your picture. We can't see that very clearly. So that's the whole system, pretty much, and that creates the Okay.
Yeah. Because we are the announcers is they are not singing. They're talking. So make sure that they have their mouth is in front of the mic.
And is this self-made? I mean, the way did you guys put this together? Did you just get your engineers or your technical people to just put something like that together with a professional microphone and give it to them? I'm talking about the sort of protection that you created for the sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So but we have one of the challenges, because this is a USB mic. Right, it's a USB mic, so you need to have a USB cable, right? As you all know, the latest Mac or the Mac before, right? They don't have a USB hub, right? So we also provide one of the dongle, we like a very low cost kind of things, like to provide those announcers who do not have that. So we actually give looks like a total solution, but it's not a high cost kind of things. In fact, I can share with you is in Malaysian ringgit is around 900 ringgit to 1,000 ringgit, right?
What is that? What is that?
900 to 1,000 ringgit. So in USD is around 200 to 240 USD. Then you
so 240 USD, and they are equipped to go from home studios.
Yeah.
And like you say, there's a bit of compromise in terms of quality, but at least they're on air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
all right.
When you listen to you can actually see a big difference between the one that before we give them the equipment and after we give them. Right. So this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's excellent, Alex. Some good concrete examples of how you guys are doing it. Let me try with Snæbjörn. Tell me a little bit about the setup you've got.
What I'm using now. What I'm doing now is what I usually do each and every week. One of our podcasts is my interview show, and the initial idea about that was doing it from home. If I switch to the other camera, you can see I'm just sitting in my living room. This is the view, and a big part of the show is actually the atmosphere.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to lose that, but of course we have a small studio that is better equipped for recording. But I don't think the interviews would be that popular and effective, but because of I'm doing it in my habitat, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the thing is to find the solution that sounds okay, and I'm pretty much using what I use during the interviews now. I have this Audient portable. You probably can see it, right? Mm-hmm. This one.
Yeah.
I'm speaking through this. Just 4 preamps. I have this. Of course, we're doing podcasts, so we use those mics because everyone is using them. The Shure SMBs.
Yeah.
And we come from the music world. We tour around the world with bands, and I've been all over the world playing with my metal band. And in the end, when everything is going so fast and you need something to work, you find out that you need equipment that just works. I'm a huge gear nerd myself, and I love all the preamps we have up in the studios and all the different effects and yada yada yada. But when you're doing this once a week, you just need something that you can move around, just plug and play, press the buttons, say hello to the guest, and speak for 2 hours, and it should just work. And that's the biggest part of it. So, but of course, we did align the table. It's this way, but not that way, because of like echoes and stuff. And I tried not to sit with my back straightly up against the glass window because of the reflection back and
Yes.
such. So there are those small tricks you can actually use, but
no professional soundproofing. It's really a matter of trial and error to try and find the position where you are in your home studio, which has the maximum benefit and doesn't have echo, etc. That's what you did. It was purely trial and error. Move it around until you find the perfect, the sweet spot. Let's call it that.
Yeah, essentially yes, but still not sacrificing the atmosphere for the interview.
Yeah,
and I mean, this is not full of equipment or stuff over here, but something that breaks the sound does quite a lot. And also what I am doing with like strangers each and every week, speaking to them on those mics. I know how they work, and I urge them just keep them as close as you can.
Right.
Because when you're really into the interview, you're just telling me something about your late mother or something, you start to drift away from the microphone. Sure, I'm sure you can hear me right now. But as you said, Alex, after more than an hour of that kind of echoing sound, it gets really tiring. So, but still, in the end, we are doing, for us at least, we're doing podcasts, we're doing interesting shows, and the content has to be number one. So, for those shows, like for my show, for example, the interview thing, I think doing it in the right environment for that mood is the most essential thing. And then you just try to work with what you have. We have other shows just talking about records and music and vinyl and stuff that we just do in the studio where everything is soundproofed and as good as can. And that equipment costs probably 10 times what I have here. And
so do you know what this little setup that you have in your home, what kind of cost that is in USD? So if you don't know, it's all right, because you can think about it as I go to Franklin. So work it out. But if you do know, tell us now.
Let me think about it for a while.
Okay, right.
I would lie so badly if I said something else.
All right, you think about that. You WhatsApp whoever you need to get the kind of real figures, and then we 100%. Franklin, tell us about community radio stations. I mean, you work with many of them. They're your key stakeholder. Directly from you, an insight into what happened during this crisis. Were people able to do what Alex was able to do, what Snæbjörn was able to do, or did they have to shut down?
I think that the challenge we do experience is obviously connectivity. So when you have to work remote, connectivity becomes critical, and our experience is that becomes the biggest barrier. So what we've been able to do is to use WhatsApp, and so what it's much easier and it's much more cost effective. So these presenters, which were mostly volunteers, what they can do is to record audio and then send it through to the studio where it's then produced. So it becomes easier for you to manage the numbers of people coming into a facility, and especially with lockdown, we had special permission for radio stations to operate. So we were able to cut down on staff by using audio clips sent by presenters as they prepare for their shows. They could send those clips. Some of them could do the full program at home through Audacity and edit the whole program and then forward it as an audio clip via WhatsApp. So yes, we compromised a lot in terms of our live content, but it's mainly because of lack of proper connectivity.
So like you say, they had to be compromised. But if you think about the solution that you were forced into using just to make sure that the community that you are serving, or your community radio stations are serving, are still served through what I guess is the most important moment for them. They need the help, they need the assistance, they need advice, guidance, knowledge, information. What was the cost of making that solution work?
You know what? It was about, if you work, we've done a calculation per radio station. So we were able to get support for radio stations in South Africa. It was about 35,000 a month that we could contribute, because that would help with getting, just the basics like sanitation and masks available at the stations. And then back to the technology, we were able to at least acquire more bandwidth and allow these radio stations then to issue, vouchers to these volunteers working from home. So I would say it's in the region of what, $1,000 to $2,000 if you have to put it in a dollar figure for radio stations. So that's not an individual cost, but that's definitely the radio cost extra that happened.
Okay, to allow them to be able to continue remote work. Is that what you say? Okay.
That is what I say, because what we were able to do is to give vouchers, number one. And for those that need to come in to do the editing, we were able to buy sanitation and masks and make sure that all the protocols are being followed at the stations.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah. All right. So Alex, back to you. You talked earlier about the technology side. The other part of this is obviously process. Processes change. When we're living in a normal environment, working in radio, people walk into the studio, 15 minutes, half an hour, however long before, they're prepared, they know what to press. And from a process perspective, there are certain ways of working. What changed in the ways of working when you had to be dislocated from your environment, the normal environment they worked in? Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very good point to point this out, right? Because what I've shared is just like mainly we just focus on the DJ or the announcers, right? Like we have a lot of different departments that actually go through this, including the music directors who are actually doing the scheduling of the music and such, right? So what we do, we actually grant them access remotely to the computer that it is in the office from home. That they would just do and do the scheduling as usual, right? The best thing is because thanks to the internet is in Malaysia is really quite is really good. So we do not have that kind of issues that we faced last time. So what they do is just including the traffic teams, which is we call it as a sales op, right? Where the commercial come in, where the booking comes in. Thank God that during that kind of that situations, right, we still have some commercial to come in and for the traffic team to do some bookings and such, right? So we actually give them access to via VPN, and they actually do the remote access and do the scheduling as well for the commercial. All right, back to the on air, right? Because the announcers are used to do it on the paneling and such, all these things, right? But we are asking them to go from home, right? How can they manage it, right? So the best thing is because, like I said, that before COVID, we actually moved everything into a cloud-based system. So the system that they have been using, we actually have a lighter version who they can actually access it to the system as long as they have the computer, right? But there are limitations that they cannot do 3 announcers at a time. What they have to do is only 1 announcer at a time. So during the time, they just manage the interface. Everything is exactly the same, whatever they do in the studio. And another thing is they do not require to have a different login and such. So what they have been using the users in the office. They just use back the same credential to log in, and when they see the interface is the interface that they use to it. So they will actually make them to have a practice that they cannot find those music beats, they cannot find those settings that they have been using it. So everything is on cloud. So everybody is So the only thing that
There are a couple of questions that come to mind, but before I get to that question, I'm going to come to you, Detlef, as our tech consultant on this particular panel, just to talk about importance of cloud and then importance of protection. The fact that you're now moving outside the sort of safe confines of hard drives in your own studio suddenly to the cloud, does that create more risk? How do you protect against that risk? I'm going to come to you with that question just now, so think about it. But let me say to those who are watching, there might be questions that you have that are very pressing that you want to put to our expert panel. Please send those questions through. And as they come through, of course, what we will do is we will put them to this panel if they haven't already pre-answered. Of course, these guys are extremely well prepared. You know, these are experts we're talking to at the UNESCO Remote Radio Week. So they might have already anticipated what you're going to ask. But if you have something that we haven't asked, haven't dealt with, send them through. And of course, towards the end of this discussion, absolutely, we will present those questions to our panel. So let me go to you now, Detlef. When you, firstly, the cloud, it sounds like when you go remote, that might be difficult for stations with limited resources, the community sector, I'm not sure. But for, you know, big outfits, cloud is an absolute essential or not?
maybe it's really the opposite of what you're saying. You say it's not impossible. Maybe it is possible, and it's just a big opportunity. I mean, when I listen to Alex and Franklin, what you said about quality and connectivity had very different aspects. Quality on Alex's side with his own microphone, with his special microphone built up, and Franklin saying, okay, connectivity. So maybe some things have to be produced offline, and then later on have to go live. I mean, I have been personally involved in Zambia with a radio station in Chikuni for a long time, and it exists since 20 years, and I'm involved for 15 years. And what I see as a big challenge is really, I mean, and I see at your places you have studios also, I mean, quite professional environments, how to bring it more up remotely and more to people, of course, outside of the studio, and more flexibility. And so I think, well, we have smartphones, we have mobile networks growing, and independent of the final distribution way, whether this is FM, I think the title today is FM, but it could also be streaming. I think it's really how to create content at the source. How do you create the content at the place where you are? And I feel, taking into account those two aspects, quality and connectivity, it needs both. I think it needs really this equipment, which means really the microphone at the source, which is good enough, and the use of the microphone is good, so that people use the microphone in a way that it sounds really good. With this example of you, Snæbjörn, going far away, it gets tired. So I think the teaching is important, how to use it. And if you have an interview partner, that you may have two microphones, or at least you really switch the microphones, that's the key. And then really having tools, and I'm not seeing them, I could not name a tool or an app on a smartphone which covers this all, but that you can really produce. So of course you have tools to produce audio, no doubt. There are lots of tools, and you gave some examples. But also to do a radio show, to say, okay, come on, I have a radio show. I do something live for 2 minutes. I have a commercial. I have music coming from the cloud. So I really can do it remotely, not controlling my studio, but the studio is on my smartphone actually. So I have it with me. And so I think that's where we see challenges and opportunities in engineering to cover this. And then let's say if you have a bad connection, Franklin, then of course you need to do something offline. So I think it would be great to do live. If you have an indication on your smartphone, okay, the connection is good enough to do live, then you go live. If you can't go live, I mean, you have something pre-produced, which is in the cloud. The pre-produced is not anymore on your smartphone. It's already in the cloud. So from the cloud, of course, it's much easier to go live, whether it goes live from the cloud to an FM station, or to be transmitted on FM and modulated, or whether it goes to a CDN content delivery network to go really for streaming. So I think those areas, I would say, in terms of safety, our security, I would say comment only. It's like with everything else too. I mean, everybody has to take care about cloud security and use services which are more or less protected and safe. But I mean, this is, I think, our daily business in any job, in any profession to cover that. But I think that's the challenge, to have something, a solution which covers the live, the interview, the music, the commercials, all in one, and really bridges if there is no connectivity to go offline and still have good content.
That's really good advice. Thank you for that, Detlef. In fact, I'm glad you brought in this whole idea of the mobile phone, the smartphone, as a means of being essentially being your studio, your ability to record or in fact broadcast live. I'm not aware if anybody's doing that. So can I open this up to the panel as a whole? Has any of you seen that in action, where essentially instead of a microphone, instead of that kind of professional setup that we're all very used to, people have used mobile phones to continue their broadcasts? Not sure if any of you have seen that. I'm just opening it up. No, clearly not.
Are you talking about for the broadcast itself, or just for the recordings?
Well, I think, I'm not sure if anybody's ever gone live with that, whether that's possible. Are there apps available that allow people to connect remotely to a studio from their remote setting, and people have actually done that and produced a radio show? Not sure if it's happened.
I mean, I can give one example. I mean, of course, you can go live immediately with Instagram and YouTube. So, but that's not a radio. That is not a radio.
Sure.
So, and I think technically we see this already on audio video. It's available, and you can use this instantly. I could go now live with our session somewhere on Instagram and YouTube. It's no problem. So I think the need or the challenge is, I mean, to do radio. That's more than just going on with a live stream, and you have to cover. Maybe you want to do an interview with someone and he's not locally available, is maybe remotely available. So you want to do in 3 minutes interview, you want to do 5 minutes music, you want to do 2 minutes moderation, and then maybe 5 minutes a pre-recorded podcast. And so I'm not sure whether you use parts of this. Probably. I mean, I heard some names of brands. You mentioned Audacity, you mentioned WhatsApp, you mentioned other things. So I think parts of this, of course, are used, but not as a whole. It's not as a complete solution.
Right. In fact, this question, Raj Elixir, who's one of those who's watching this, sent us exactly that question. Is there any software to go live on air from anywhere? You can see it at the bottom of the screen. Does that exist right now? And we're okay with naming names. Because it's about being helpful here on UNESCO Remote Radio Week.
I've only been. Yeah, sure.
You go first.
I've been a part of a radio show that was being broadcasted live, and I remember that they used the phone as a live link, just linking the show. But that was just the whole production, like full-blown production. But in the end, it was only linking through the phone. So it wasn't really a broadcast app or a broadcasting application as such. They were only using the phone as the link, a very reliable and locked and secure link. But that totally worked. But that has nothing to do with the actual production. That's just to get the actual content going out live somewhere else.
Right. And Alex, you wanted to contribute to this as well.
Yeah, like I said just now, we have a lighter version of the system that we have been using on studio, and we are actually going from home, right? Not only the laptop. If you have a mobile phone, you can also use it and do the broadcast on phone. But we never tried this before. But one of the things that I can actually recommend to Raj, right, is just like a software that we use is actually we have a lot, right? If I really want to name it, is of course the one that we have been using is actually RCS Zeta to Go. Right, this is the software that we have been using, but in fact, we also look into other options like Radio DJ, and also another one called Play It Live. Right, all is we can actually use directly from the mobile phone. But the problem is your mobile phone. If your mobile phone, like for example iPhone, the latest version, you only have one SIM card, right? So if that connection is down, you do not have a backup. Right. So to overcome this, right, we have another solution, which is not the software. We can have a lot, but also the hardware is very important, right? One of the hardware in Malaysia is very famous. In fact, even our TV station is using it for live broadcast. Right. I can just name it. In fact, this brand should give me some credit on this, some discount when I purchase my next one. If a Live U Solo is LIVE Live U SOLO Solo. Right, it's a very small device, and inside that you can have an option for you to put more than one SIM card, meaning that if one ISP is down, you can actually have a backup for another one. So you can to avoid you having any interruption of the connection. So these are the things that I can recommend to Raj to go and explore.
Okay, that's brilliant. Snæbjörn, before I go to Franklin, I want to ask you whether you came up with a number.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one quick comment on you, Alex. I really like how you talk about backups, because it really doesn't matter what you're doing. If you don't have a backup or something really huge is going on, you're just done, man. And it has to do with all the equipment pretty much. And this is what you learn from being on the road with your band. Have just backups for everything. I did. The Audient ID44 is around $700 and those mics would be, I think, close to 500 each. So the setup I'm using with two mics, and we have all this like this tiny little preamp here. The fathead is because the mic is drawing quite a lot from the. So we're using the phantom power from the sound card. All in all, somewhere right above 2,000, I guess. But you could get away with But you could get away with quite a lot less, I guess, and I know you could. But what we are aiming for is, because we do it constantly, week after week, with a decent equipment, you get less troubles
Yeah, sure.
And in the end, it's not just about the quality; it's also about the convenience. And because if you have a crappy guitar amplifier, you only have one good setting, and you have to twist and turn the knobs exactly to that setting, and then it sounds decent. But if you have a great amplifier, you could just turn them however they want, and the sound just changes. It doesn't get better or worse; it's just different. And that's the thing, for example, with those mics, they just work. And even if you do that and you're talking to your grandmother, she doesn't know what she's doing, they're still okay. We don't have a ruined radio show, even if someone is right here and I don't know what I'm saying and blah, 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 it's still decent. If you would have this like on record somewhere in the middle of the table and everything is going like you did not mean it to be, then you're just pretty much fucked. Excuse my language.
Thank you for that.
May I add something on the backups?
Yes, Detlef, but we don't have a beeper here, so moderate your language, Detlef.
Okay. Backup and cloud. I just want to make one comment. Well, if you work on your desktop or on your mobile phone in the cloud, and the live content is the only content which comes from your local place, then the backup gets less critical. So your pre-produced podcasts, your music, your commercials, everything which is pre-recorded comes from the cloud, and only the live comes from your local place. And then in that case, I mean, also here, it's more like dreaming because I look a lot in future trends and challenges, what needs to be done next. I don't think it's there yet, but is also that then, let's say there is a failure in connectivity and you don't have this double, triple SIM card hardware, as you described, Alex, then maybe also here it would switch to something which is pre-recorded. And so you can prepare a lot for the failure case and maybe can let's say work with less investment, less money locally and do content. Yeah.
Franklin, let's get to you. And I'm doing this on purpose because I see that you're distracted by something, so I just wanted to catch you with the distraction. Are you in traffic, Franklin? I hope not. I hope you're parked while you're talking to us.
No, I'm parked. It's somebody outside the car. Sorry.
Well, maybe I saved you from that somebody. Hey, you don't want to be interrupted right now. So Franklin, just based on what you've heard from some of the guys in Malaysia, Iceland, some of the advice from Detlef, is there something that you would do differently in the South African situation? Because I think the important thing to say to people is Franklin comes from that community sector. It comes from South Africa. There's not a lot of funding for the community sector in South Africa. It's very limited. It's really difficult to keep things going. Sustainability is an issue. And so when we're hit with a crisis like this, and there will be future crises, is there something that has come out of today's discussion that you would want to change about how you implement at the moment or introduce?
Yes, definitely. I want to say that a network like this to start with, almost like pandemic proof yourself, because I can tap into what Alex is saying, tap into what my friend in Germany is saying, because all of that will definitely help us to come up with a better solution, come any next pandemic. So I would say number one is this network that you've established here. I would also say the technology. I think the one that Alex was talking about with the backup SIM card, that one is critical, and I'm assuming it's not that expensive. So it might be an opportunity for us as radio stations, as a collective, because we've got a network of radio stations in South Africa. And I think in most African countries, we do have country networks. And so what you can do is to start developing a guide so that people can know, okay, fine, these would be the kind of methods or methodologies you can use to cut costs, number one, but not to compromise on quality necessarily. So I would say there's definitely a great opportunity. When I look at the whole issue around connectivity, I know that connectivity can be, saved. Your challenges with connectivity can be reduced if you can find equipment and softwares and stuff that's less, stringent on bandwidth. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to use the knowledge within this network, and maybe that knowledge can be distributed broader, for free through organizations like AMAC and other global or sub-regional structures that can facilitate this kind of distribution of information. The technology side, I think, okay.
Keep going. Sorry, Franklin. Finish on that technology side, and then I'll move on.
Yes, I was saying with the technology side in Africa, I think the what would you say, proliferation of the use of smartphones in Africa is very high. You would also even see that it might look at two smartphones per person if you look at the number of smartphones in distribution. So it means there's a great opportunity using smartphone friendly technologies for radio. So that's definitely an opportunity.
Okay, that's very good. In fact, I'm glad you brought up the broadband issue. But before I get to asking Detlef about whether there are ways where we, especially in broadband limited areas where broadband's expensive, like parts of Africa and other parts of the world, whether people can broadcast with something that doesn't suck up that much broadband. Let's first deal with Kit Mun Choi's question, which I think we might have dealt with, but just in case we haven't. How do you do this stuff remotely and still maintain quality as good as studio audio? Is that even possible at this point? Maybe not yet, maybe it's still to come. Detlef?
Yeah, I think we talked about the use of the microphone, and I think Alex gave a good example. On top of this, what I would see is also signal processing and maybe also introduction of AI. So artificial intelligence on the audio. I mean, there are lots of things are going on, very cool results from labs, what you could do with the audio. And actually, there is also some time. I mean, live is live, but live, let's say if live is maybe delayed by 1, 2, 3 seconds, it's not so critical, I think, for the end user. I mean, it's still live. And that means 2, 3 seconds for analyzing the audio. So that means if there are children around or water is coming where somewhere is cooking, some noise here and there, I mean, that can actually be processed. I mean, it's not ideal. It's definitely not. I mean, the studio I love the studio environment. I mean, you saw mine behind me also, and I like to be in the studio. Quality is better, but maybe we can come closer, or we can, let's say, eliminate at least artifacts and distortions so that it is, well, let's say we try to get to the optimum, which is possible with signal processing and AI.
Okay, is that possible today? Or like you say, it's at a lab environment, so it's still being tested, still being experimented with.
Yeah. I think it's still being tested and good results. But I mean, what I was talking before is this all-in-one production app or software where we were talking about. No, I don't see this somewhere. I think that's something which needs to be created.
Okay, that's very useful. Now let's focus on that scarcity of broadband, expensive broadband. Anything that takes too much broadband in community radio environments, whether it's in economies and markets that don't have ubiquitous, cheap broadband at the moment. How do they deal with the issue of broadcast? Is there something that exists today that allows for that, for a low broadband environment and for broadcast to happen anyway in a low broadband environment? Does anyone know? Does anyone have any ideas?
We are very spoiled. The Icelanders, we are very spoiled. The internet connection everywhere is superb, and that can be difficult at times because we are anticipating sometimes that still is not doable because we just want it all. So sometimes when we are traveling abroad, like with my band, and we are broadcasting from there, we run into all sorts of problems, and we don't really know how to deal with it. It's
Detlef, any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, one key thing I think is to use as less bitrate as possible. And then for those purposes, I mean, I know that one trend in the world on audio is to go linear, to go the perfect quality. But on the other hand, encoding research has been really improved a lot, and this is available. I mean, for instance, we have a coding format called XHEAAC from Fraunhofer. I mean, they were the original MP3 inventors, the research organization. And XHEAAC is using 12 kilobit. I mean, not 64 and 80. So if you are at 12 and 8 kilobit per second, come on. I mean, this is something in lots of cases you get. If you don't get this, then maybe you don't have a connection at all.
Yeah. Okay, that's really helpful.
That's available.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. If we get a question about that, or if we can connect people to you, Detlef, if they need more information. Now, we've got about 5 minutes to go. If there are any other further questions coming through, obviously, we're happy to take them for our panel. But what I want to try and end with is must-haves and nice-to-haves, right? So if just people who are watching today, some of them are going to not have the good fortune, Snæbjörn, of living in Iceland and having all of this wonderful broadband, and to be able to grow and nurture a beard like that must take some effort too. So when we think about environments where there's scarcity, economically, broadband, et cetera, what is the absolute must-have to be able to do a home studio? Let's start with you, Detlef, on that, and then I'll go around.
Yeah, I make it short. A reasonable microphone and a good knowledge about how to use it.
Good, nice and short. Alex, from you, must have.
Must have.
Yeah.
Make use whatever you have.
Okay. All right.
This is when you get a phone, you will actually get this for free.
Yeah.
Right. That is the only option that you can do. In fact, I just want to a quick one that there is a lot of music app, like for example, Smil and Weezing, all these kind of things, right? They just use this, and they actually get a very good quality of singing, but not into a standard of Snæbjörn and Detlef are having. But this is actually good enough.
Well, as far as I know, BTS doesn't use that, right? I'm just kidding. They're top quality. Snæbjörn?
I just want to stress that no matter how good your equipment is, your show is never going to be great because of that. So it always has to do with the idea first, and then we use whatever we have. We need something to get the sound across. And I totally agree with the two of you with just use what you have. It's more about doing your thing properly and as good as you can with what you have. And essentially that's just a microphone and something to record it with, and then or broadcast it with, and then you are good. The most expensive mic in the world is not going to save a bad show. Never.
That's sage advice, no question there. Franklin.
So I think we were forced to use what we have, and you know what it does? It actually brings color. If you look at how we were able to use WhatsApp and how we changed the way that people submit messages and just goodwill messages to family through those kind of social media platforms, we've upped that. We've increased that participation, that local participation, and that's critical. And it also helps with, just changing the vibe within the local community, especially during lockdowns. So I think that definitely use what you have and be creative in terms of how to make the circle bigger.
Great, thank you for that. That's again good advice, Franklin. Alex, it looks like there's a question just for you. He doesn't want anyone else to answer it. Kitman Choi.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's male or female.
Looks like he's my fan.
He must be your fan. Yeah, absolutely. If remote live on air will eventually be able to replace on-site studio, or will it be able to replace on-site studios when technology is mature enough? Alex?
It is really a very good question, because when we do that, right, when we say that, do we really need a studio? Right? Do we need a studio? Like, for example, in my company, we have 4 to 5 radio stations, right? When we have this, right, we need to have scratch our head to actually every 2 years we need to renovate and or refurbish. We just go everybody, and we don't require to have the announcers to come to the studio and do that, right? We have a challenge, even though when the technology is mature enough, right? There are some other things that we don't have is a human touch, right? Even though when you do it from home, right? If you have 3 announcers to do, right, the chemistry will not be there, because you do not have the meetup and such. For example, there are some other things, like if you're broadcast on air, right? There are some clients like you would like to come to your studio to have a visit on you can ask the client to go to your house and visit one by one and such, right? So you will go into the studio, they want to have experience how the broadcast is being done, right? So no matter how a studio you still have to be, and also there's discipline, right? Discipline is as another issue. Imagine that if in an hour time, in an hour or a half an hour time, you have the announcers to go on air, right? But they all are at home. You do not know what they are doing, right? You will be freaked out because it's alive, right? So yes, technologies like what Detlef said, right? There are some AIs that has already, in fact, we can actually use AI to replace a news presenter, right? But at the end of the day, the tone of the way that they say, right, it will be different, right?
Sure.
So this is what I can actually answer you, Kipman.
Thank you very much. I think that was pretty powerful, right? I mean, I think the important thing is technology can do some things, but what can't be replaced is the chemistry of people working together, engaging together face to face. And that's what we've learned through this pandemic as well, that we've engaged and had meetings virtually, and we've missed something. We've missed that human connection. And I think that just deeply embedded in our genes, in our DNA, is this this desire to engage with other humans. And that will never be replaced by technology. Great panel. Thank you so much to all of you for your contribution. It's clear that those who have been watching this particular panel, UNESCO Remote Radio Week, have really enjoyed it. Alex Poon, Detlef Wiese, Franklin Huizies, and Snæbjörn Ragnarsson. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Connectonaire.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Live on connectonair.com and remoteradioweek.org. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Insights and suggestions on how to keep your radio business operating through any crisis.